Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Charles. I want to welcome you guys to another episode of the Dreamerspro Show, where we cover everything from sports, hot topics, classic debates, entertainment, where we give you a first perspective on things and how we see them. And in today's episode, the topic is, do the Clippers need to dominate the Lakers to prove to everyone that they're the best team in the league? So that's the topic I want to get into in today's video. But before we get into that, I want you guys to please make sure you go ahead and hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell to be notified whenever we drop our content. Also, be sure to check out our Dreamerspro Podcast, which we have linked in the description below. So make sure you guys go ahead and check that out. So, as you all know, the free agency is pretty much coming to an end, and the NBA season is about to begin. And it's been a splash between these two teams, and things are beginning to heat up in the media again. Now, last season, it was the main storyline in the NBA, at least in my opinion, but that's what I think it was. It was really the Battle of LA. It was a rivalry all season long. The NBA decided to open up the season with that game because you all know each season in the NBA is about storylines. That's really what sports is all about. It's about storylines, and that was a storyline. Kawhi Leonard moving to LA to go play with the Clippers to be a opponent against LeBron James. And on opening night, the Clippers came out and made a statement. It was a statement win for him. They won the first game. The second game these two teams played, obviously you guys remember that game on Christmas Day when they went head to head against each other, and it was a fantastic game. And that's when Kawhi Leonard again showed that he was the best player on the floor that night easily, and the Clippers were able to come away with the win towards the end of that game. Y'all remember the swipe down that Patrick Beverley had on LeBron James's fingertips, went out of bounds, and then Nick Wright came out on TV the next day and said that the referees got that play wrong, even though they got it right by going to instant replay, and said and that's the reason why they should get rid of instant replay, because they got the call right. And that's when I first knew that Nick Wright was on something else with his own fandom, and that's when I stopped kind of taking him too seriously when he started saying that. Then, of course, before the lockdown in March, the two teams met up again, and I got to hand it to the Lakers, and especially LeBron James, but he had two back-to-back great performances, one against the Greek Freak at the time, who had the number one seed in the NBA, record in the NBA, came in, beat the Greek Freak. One day off, the next night they played against the Clippers, and they were able to come away with the win. Anthony Davis and LeBron James really showed out. And then, of course, we got the final matchup between these two teams in the Orlando bubble, in which the Lakers won that game, and it tied the season series 2-2. Now, we all know what happened since then. The Lakers went on to win the NBA title and end up beating the team that the Clippers lost to in 7 games, because the Clippers lost to the Denver Nuggets, although being up on them 3-1, and somehow just had a mental breakdown. The bench players just completely disappeared. Montrezl Harrell, that Laker fans are so elated to have, he was a no-show in the playoffs. He was shooting horribly from the field in the playoffs, so he was there. He wasn't playing well. And the Clippers lost because Kawhi Leonard had his worst game he could possibly ever have in his career in that game 7 by scoring 12 points. Paul George was hitting the backboard. There were reports that none of these guys, the team didn't want to be there. So it was a complete and total disaster. And Kawhi Leonard, it was like an avalanche that came on top of him, with people criticizing him because of how he didn't show up. And to be fair, and you know what, to be fair, as a Kawhi Leonard fan, I think he deserved the brunt of the blame because he's the leader of the team. If the team does very well, he was going to get the lion's share of the credit. That's just the way it works in sports. That's the way it works in life, really. Your boss is always going to get the most credit when things go right, and he most likely always gets the most blame when things go wrong, at least if you work in an accountable organization, but whatever. So that's what happened. And going into the offseason, there were a lot of moves that needed to be made, okay? And let's start off with the Lakers, because the Lakers had a pretty frantic offseason. So they lost Rajon Rondo, as y'all know. He decided to go play with the Atlanta Hawks because they were simply able to offer him more money. But he was one of the most important pieces in that Laker run as they were going to go win the NBA title. Rajon Rondo had a lot of key steals. He was hitting a lot of threes. His shot went up, and there's a reason they call him playoff Rondo. He was sensational. But he ended up walking Dwight Howard, who was a defensive stalwart for that team, the defensive anchor, him and Anthony Davis. He was the one that picked up the assignment of playing Nikola Jokic. I think it was in the Western Conference Finals, and he was a difference maker in that series. You can think whatever you want to think. Dwight Howard is a 3-time Defensive Player of the Year, and his physicality, his athleticism definitely played a role in slowing down Nikola Jokic. So they lost Dwight Howard to the Philadelphia 76ers, but I thought he thought at one point he was coming back. Apparently not. Avery Bradley, who didn't even show up to the NBA bubble, they lost him, but to be quite honest with you, they didn't really gain anything with him in the playoffs because he wasn't even there. So We don't know what his contribution would have been because he never played, so he wasn't there. And finally, they lost Danny Green, who was a veteran in the NBA. I think he was getting paid like $15 million a year or something like that. His market price might have been inflated given the fact that he was on the Toronto Raptors team that had won the championship the year before. So obviously, maybe his value may have been appreciated at that point. But they lost him. And let's talk about who the Lakers ended up getting in return. And I think the Lakers had a great offseason. They were able to keep KCP, who was really important to them. They were able to keep him. I think he's a clutch client. They were able to pick up Dennis Schroeder to replace Rajon Rondo. We're going to see what his value is going to be if he's going to be a Rondo, because I think really the real test of these guys is going to be what they can bring them in the playoffs. They picked up Montrezl Harrell, which was the shocker really to all of us. And we did a video that was very, very controversial and got so many dislikes, very polarizing, but on our channel a few days ago. If you guys haven't checked that out, we're going to link that at the end of this video, so you make sure you go check that video out to see. If you disagree with me, you guys can definitely I'm sure you have a lot to say in that video. Then they picked up Marc Gasol, who was also a very good defensive player then. He's a little bit longer in the tooth, longer in the tooth. He's a little bit older, but he's still very skilled, very smart basketball player like his brother Pau Gasol, former Laker great, and also he can stretch the floor by hitting the three, so he's a great pickup. And they picked up Wesley Matthews to supplant Avery Bradley, who's a bigger, more physical, athletic defender. I don't know if he's more athletic, but he's a bigger defender. So that's how those are the moves that the Lakers made, and they made some really great offseason moves. To be honest with you, I think Rob Pelinka in the front office for the Lakers did a fantastic job. Now, if we look at the Clippers offseason, of course they lost Montrezl Harrell. That was a big piece that they lost, but they also lost Rodney McGruder. They lost him. They lost Landry Shamet. They lost him as well. And they lost JaMychal Green, which is a player that I really, really, really like coming off the bench. A power forward that can shoot, can shoot the three, space the floor. He understands his role really well. He plays great man-to-man defense. Seems like a professional. So they lost him, and that was a piece that I really, wasn't happy about that they lost. But in return, they were able to replace Montrezl Harrell with Serge Ibaka, who's a legitimate 7-footer. Montrezl Harrell, I think, is about 6'6", 6'7". Serge Ibaka is a legitimate 7-footer that could block shots, deter a lot of shots coming to the paint. He can stretch the floor. He can hit the mid-range. So he's not only good in the pick and roll, but he's also good in the pick and pop, like a legitimate pick and pop player. And he can also hit the three-pointer, so he's a very, very good player. They were also able to pick up Luke Kennard, who had a fantastic season for the Detroit Pistons last season. I think he averaged something like 15 points a game, shot 40% from the field, well over 4 assists per game, and I think it got you like 3 or something rebounds per game. So he's a fantastic, fantastic player. They were also able to keep Marcus Morris, who's a fantastic, fantastic player who I liked a lot. I liked his defensive ability. I liked his ability that he shot 40% from the field all season long. He's a power forward, small forward. He can defend. He's very edgy. He's very chippy. And he gives the team an edge, which is something that I like anyway. So I'm very happy that they were able to keep him. I think they signed him for 2 years or so. I don't remember, or 2 or 3 years. I don't remember the exact numbers. And also they have Jonathan Motley, who I don't know much about, but I'm sure as time goes on, I'm going to be able to find out a little bit more about this guy. So let's talk about the real question of why I think the Clippers actually need to dominate the Lakers to just shut people up. Because even though the Clippers were able to make some good moves, people are still saying that the Clippers have nothing on the Lakers, and the Lakers are going to smash them whenever they see them. Some people say they're going to sweep them, whatever it is, right? People have a lot to say, and I think the only way for the Clippers to actually shut people up is by going out there and dominating the Lakers. You don't need to leave a doubt in people's minds. If the teams are going to play each other 4 times this season, beat them 3 times, right? 2 times you can say, hey, man, it was a toss-up. But if you beat them 3 times, then it was decisive. That means 75% of the time these guys were playing against each other, you were beating them. So if they're able to do that, then I think that people will really start taking them seriously. Also, their approach to this season, if they look very serious, if they seem very focused, especially on the defensive end, because last year they were really promoted as a great defensive team, and we didn't see that for much of the season, right? A lot of that had to do with injuries. Paul George having shoulder surgery in the offseason. He missed a good amount of games. Patrick Beverley was in and out of the lineups. Then Paul George had a hamstring pull. Then Kawhi Leonard was low managing. There was so many different issues. Even when the NBA bubble started, Patrick Beverley wasn't available for a lot of the games. In the games that he did start, he had a lot of energy, but he seemed like he had a lot of uncontrolled energy that was just sort of kind of erratic. So for me, I think number one, they need to beat the Lakers a good amount of times. Number two, you need to see it in the demeanor, the things that they're saying. And when training camp opens on December 1st, depending on when you guys see this video, we're publishing it on November 25th. We're going to know a lot about the team's mentality based on some of the things that they're going to be saying to the reporters, which is something that I'm very keen to hear about, because based on some of the things that they're going to say, is going to let me know if these guys have had a mental shift, and it's going to let me know the impact of Ty Lue, if it's actually being felt on the team. So for me, I think they need to dominate the Lakers, period, end of story. It doesn't need to be a shot of a doubt, because if it's a doubt, people are always going to say, hey man, this is a fluke, you guys ain't really it. And to be quite honest with you, they have to make up. This needs to be a redemption season for them, because last season they were busy walking around acting like they won the title, and this year they need to go out and prove it. So for me, that's what I think. I think they need to dominate the Lakers this season, not just beat them or be competitive with them. They need to actually dominate this team to be able to get people to start taking them seriously again. So this is what I think. So what I want to know from you guys is, what do you think about what I'm saying? Do you think that the Clippers really need to dominate the Lakers, or do you think they don't need to focus on the Lakers? They need to focus on being healthy, building a good chemistry, and when the playoffs come, let that be the time you make you start making a statement? Or do you think that they need to do it now, or do you think they have no shot? Whatever you guys think, please leave your thoughts and comments in the comment section below. Again, if you enjoyed the video, please make sure you go ahead and hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell to be notified whenever we drop our content. Also, be sure to check out this video that we're linking here at the end of this video, and just watch that full video on the Montrezl Harrell video. If this video pissed you off, I'm sure that one will piss you off even more. Once again, this is Charles here, wishing you guys a great day from Dreamerspro. Peace.